goes AWire, I hope.
There you go.
All right. By the way, how many of these are you doing?
We're scheduled to have 150.
150 or more.
That's going to be a lot of. Wow. How are you going to extrapolate that into one piece?
I think the challenge of that will be on the whoever she gets to do the film editing,
Mm-hmm.
to put it into like a documentary.
Wow.
Yeah. What I think will be a lot of fun is the play, because she's talking about doing a play out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the team that has to watch all of these and then pull pieces out of different ones to
Right.
make the play, that is going to be time
Yeah.
consuming. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I'm not looking forward to being on that committee.
I'm not either. In fact, I was in the we were in the meeting together when they were talking about first doing it, and I said, "No way, Jose. I'm not no actor. I'm not. No, I don't want no parts of that. I'll do whatever you ask me, Rhonda, but not, that ain't it."
We are recording.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jeannie Joy, and I'm one of the community interviewer, and it brings me great pleasure and joy to interview the director, Mr. Kevin Valentine. He's the director of the Helen S. Brown Center. And I just want to take the opportunity so you can introduce yourself and
Hmm.
tell the community, East Cleveland, your name, your title, and then we can go on into the interview.
Okay. Again, I'm Kevin Valentine, and I'm the director of the Helen S. Brown Senior Center, as well as the director of adult and senior services for the city of East Cleveland.
Okay. And how many years you been at this location?
I've been here 3 years since this current administration.
Okay. So 3 years you've been here.
Yes, here at Helen
Okay.
Brown. The
That's
center itself has been here since 1972.
since 72.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And the day is a Tuesday, July the 17th, and we have the honor of being here and interviewing you. So I'm going to go right into the questions, and then we can just move forward from there.
Mhm.
Tell me about yourself and the history of your family.
Of my family. Well, I am originally from Illinois, small town called Springfield, Illinois, which is, of course, the capital of Illinois. When I was growing up, Springfield at that time was pretty much a very rural community, rather small community as well. The main business being agriculture and state government. Again, born and raised there, and left at the age of 17.
Okay, okay. And at this age of 17, how many siblings do you have?
Well, I have a brother and a sister.
Okay.
Both live in Michigan. One is a firefighter, and the other does something in the area of veterinarian.
Okay. And you have a huge family here in this area?
No, just actually the only people here are myself and my daughter.
Okay, just up your daughter.
And I have yeah, she's 17 years old.
Okay, just up your daughter. And what about your family members? Where are they originally from?
They're originally from a place called West Helena, Arkansas.
Okay. And how did they get to the greater Cleveland area?
Well, migration, period.
Okay.
Migration. Now, again, please keep in mind, I'm the only one from my immediate family that's here. So they migrated from Arkansas in the 40s to Springfield, Illinois.
Okay. And then moved.
And then some moved, some stayed, some moved further north to Chicago, and the rest of them moved to Detroit.
Okay. And did your other siblings come to the greater Cleveland area?
No,
also?
I'm the only one.
Okay, so we just have the honor of having you.
Yeah, just me.
And your parents came along also?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And how did you get to the East Cleveland area?
That's a good question. I moved here in 1988, and prior to 1988, I worked for the Andrew Young administration. That's when Mayor Young was mayor of Atlanta,
Okay.
former UN ambassador. So I worked in his administration, and at the end of his administration, I decided to come back to Cleveland, if you will. In Atlanta, mayors can't succeed themselves after 2 terms.
Okay.
So I had opportunity here in Cleveland, working for the Mental Health Board, and I took on that opportunity.
Okay. And from the mental health board, what was your next step?
From the board, I ended up at Murtis Taylor.
Okay.
Ended up doing casework, social work at Murtis Taylor for a number of years, and then from there, after so many years in mental health, it's time to go. And so I had an opportunity with the Housing Authority under the administration of Claire Freeman, and became one of the directors of social services for CMHA.
Okay. So you was in a lot of leading roles.
Yes, I would say definitely.
Okay. And what was the spearhead to get you and director of the center here, the Helen S. Brown Center?
Well, I had, previous to my coming here, I was the coalition coordinator for the East Cleveland Bridges of Hope Coalition. And that was under a federal grant that the Northern Ohio Recovery Association had received. So my job was to develop partnerships in the city with organizations that work with children. And so I did that successfully, and I think that was one of the reasons why the mayor decided to bring me on, because I had so much varied experience in working with people. And so Mayor Norton asked me to come on board, and I accepted the challenge, and I'm still here.
And it's been 3 years now.
It's been 3 years now.
Okay. And when you mentioned the challenge, what was the main challenge that you received coming back to East Cleveland and being a director of a center? What was the highlight challenge that you think that?
Brandon, you want to cut this now?
You probably need to cut it to really tell a good answer.
Right.
I know.
Huh?
Let's give them the water down.
Yeah. I would say the challenge for me initially was getting residents to understand that Helen Brown was open for business, number one. People thought that this center was closed. People thought that you had to be a member. People thought that this was a nursing home. So there was a lot of misinformation out there about the center and what the purpose of the center was. So my immediate challenge was marketing, going out in the community, letting people know what Helen Brown was about, what services were available, and how we can best serve this community and our older adult population. So the immediate challenge was getting people back in the door. The second challenge was then getting services. It was pretty, when I came here, it was pretty docile. The seniors that did come here generally will watch TV, eat lunch, and go home. And that was their day. And I am under the belief that you can do that at home, that this center needs to offer much more comprehensive services than it was doing at that particular time. And we have reached that goal because we have a variety of programs. There's something going on here all the time at this point.
Are you pleased with it at this point?
Absolutely, I am.
And
Yeah.
what would be your next challenge and goal that you would like to have done under your watch?
I think the continue to increase services, number one. I'd like to see hours expanded, meaning that some evening activities going on for our seniors, some weekend activities going on. We're one of only a handful of centers of our kind that don't have Saturday hours. And so I'd like to see that expansion.
Okay. And when you mentioned about your family coming here to the greater Cleveland area.
That would be only me.
Only you.
Yeah.
Only you.
Right.
In this area. Your parents stayed where?
In Illinois.
In Illinois.
Yes.
Okay. And with you being without your family and did you come directly to East Cleveland or was it
No, I came directly to East Cleveland.
How did you know about East Cleveland? How did you find out about East
I
Cleveland?
didn't. I didn't know about East Cleveland. I
Okay.
thought it was all one Cleveland.
Okay.
And I happened to be looking, when I first got here, I happened to be looking for an apartment, and I ended up in East Cleveland.
And what year was this?
1988, I believe.
1988.
88. Mhm.
Okay. Did you have any extended family to show you around East Cleveland and tell you?
I had friends from college years, which was one of the reasons why I came here, because I knew people that were already here, and I need to back up. Our family has frequented Cleveland because of our church affiliation. So I'm originally from the Church of God in Christ. So we would come to Cleveland for, district meetings and conferences and things of that nature. So I kind of had a feel already for Cleveland. And quite frankly, some of my relationships go back so far, people think that I am from the greater Cleveland area
Okay.
because they've known me that many years.
I want to say this and I want to move on. What was your biggest shock coming to Cleveland, A? And what was your biggest disappointment?
The biggest shock was how people drive.
Okay.
How people drive. This has got to be some of the craziest driving I've ever seen in my life. But then I realized a lot of it has to do with the conditions of the road. People are driving around potholes and things of that nature. I had never experienced that before. Because I know in Atlanta, the streets are paved, they're well taken care of, they're well maintained. So that would be the biggest shock.
Okay.
You said the next one was what?
What was the negative part that you found? Would that considered the negative shock, positive and negative?
Something positive is I like the idea of neighborhood. When I first got here, in the areas that I moved in, people knew each other, people spoke to each other, people were friendly. So that was absolutely the positive about the city.
Okay. Can you think back to your earliest memory of East Cleveland? And tell me what life was like then. I know you mentioned in 1988.
Yep.
Mhm.
When I got here, again, people were friendly. They were open, very supportive. Realizing that I was a single guy out here by myself, there was a time in East Cleveland when I could walk from one end of East Cleveland to the other end of East Cleveland and not worry about my personal safety. I could be walking down Hewlett and people would honk at me because they knew me. So very, very engaging, if you will.
And that was very opening for you?
Yeah, that was definitely.
Okay. Can you think back in your early memory, how was the community engagement? When you say family, what was your definition of family then, in your earliest years?
When I got here, I lived on Roslyn.
Okay.
I lived in one of the big Rockefeller homes right down the street from where Brandon is. And family meant family. I mean, John Hitton lived 2 doors over from me. There were other people on the street that, there was a couple of ladies that had foster children in their home. They still do, in fact. So it was just one big family, one big community. I think at that time also, Councilwoman Omar lived 2 more houses down from me. Easy woman to talk to. So it was just a good community to live in. And so I thought of that as family from where I came from. That's how family on a block, that's how we all thought of each other as families. And we worked together.
So you fit right in. It wasn't
Fit
a
right in.
shock for you.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
So you like that family
Absolutely.
camaraderie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also with your family, you used to the family traditions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sunday church, Sunday big dinner. I'm just used to that. Family reunions, picnics. That's how I grew up.
So that's a wonderful thing to have family.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But did you ever at that point feel alone since you came on your own?
Never.
Never felt alone?
Never. No, always had a solid support system.
Because of?
Well, I'm a pretty affable guy.
Okay.
And so, and by nature of the work that I did, I always continued to meet people.
Okay. So you was in constant contact with people.
Oh, absolutely, all the time,
So,
on a professional and a personal basis.
okay. And with your line of wonderful work in your different parts in the city, you know people.
Oh,
So it's
yeah.
never was an issue for you
Never.
about people.
Never.
Okay. What are your fondest memories of East Cleveland?
Fondest memories. I'd say going to the park, uh, fishing in the pond, those kinds of things.
Okay. Did you catch any fish?
Not in that pond.
Okay. So that's just was enjoyable.
Just
for
yeah,
you.
exactly.
Okay. Did with being in East Cleveland, did you find a lot of places to go?
Yeah, there were a lot of outlets for me. At one point there were some pretty, there were some very nice not after hours, but there were some after hours
Yeah,
clubs.
that was my next question.
But there were some very nice clubs
Okay.
at one point here in the city. I think you probably remember one, Brandon, 3030. You remember that?
Where was that at?
It used to be up there where the Marathon Station is now.
Across from Davis Bakery, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
You remember?
Then he moved out to
Right,
Green Lakes House.
right.
And then he moved further and just destroyed it.
Yep, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. But it was a very nice club at one point. So there's a lot of social outlets, church, just going to people's houses, visiting. So there were opportunities to interact constantly for me.
What was the church that you mentioned? What church was your first?
First church went to Olivet
Olivet Church
Institutional Baptist Church.
location?
That's on Quincy.
Oh, Quincy. Okay. Any particular churches in East Cleveland?
I've been to quite a few of the churches here in the city. At one point, Starlight Baptist Church was a favorite. Yeah, that'd be the only one actually.
When you mentioned the entertainment part of East Cleveland, you mentioned the clubs and the different places. Did you find
The library used to have a jazz series every Sunday, and sometimes on Saturdays. So the library was always an outlet, and again, a lot of private stuff going on in the city.
So you stayed within the city. You didn't have to go out too
No,
much for
not very.
entertainment.
No,
Okay.
not very often.
Okay. Any particular highlight, fondest memories that you can say, well, this was just really something that I can remember from 1988 to now?
Well, we used to have the Love Fest. I don't know if you remember that.
I think that was.
Yeah, the Love Fest, and there was where Euclid would be shut down, and they could get out there and have bands and dancers and food all day.
Okay, that was a one-day event?
Love Fest was 1 or 2 days. Was it
I want to say it was
two?
Friday, Saturday,
Friday-
and Sunday.
Friday, yeah, it was 3 days.
Players?
Right, it was a three-day event.
Okay. Is that still in existence?
No, they stopped that probably about 10 years ago. About 10 years
Who
ago.
who implemented that?
Art McCoy.
Okay, so he implemented that
Mhm.
program. Okay. With those events that's going on, it was still like the family feeling. Everything was family feeling.
I would say so. Yeah, it was family friendly. There was stuff for everybody to do,
Okay.
from the kids, little bitty kids, to older adults.
Okay. And with you still having that family growing up feeling, I can feel the passion that you really like that, and it helped you out throughout your years.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's definitely something that.
I have a lot of adopted families that
Okay.
I'm a part of.
Okay.
Because I was here by myself, but that was the one thing that I knew would keep me connected, as an individual, was being a part of other people's lives. And so I have a lot of adopted families.
Okay. Because just like you mentioned with your family, you was family oriented.
Right, exactly.
So you grew up in that particular era so that's all you know.
That's all I know. You're right.
That's all you know.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
My next question is, In which ways has the city changed over time?
Wow. Well, I've seen three transitions, I think, since I've gotten here. The first transition was that warm and fuzzy feeling in the early days of my arrival here, when people looked out for each other and people were families, and you know, you felt safe walking the street. The second transition that I saw was in the early 90s, the influx of drugs into the community. And I saw this community fall apart because of all the drug activity that was going on. I saw the community just go all the way down. And people were not safe in this community. And that's a reality of what happened to this city. Now I'm seeing a third and transition and a renaissance, if you will, where you know, where the community is beginning to come back together, where people are recognizing that we do have something here in East Cleveland that can be good. You know, we have a new administration that is genuinely sincere about building this community up. There's a lot of development coming back into the city. I see new homes coming up. So I see a third transition and a renaissance, if you will.
With this transition, is there something that you actually feel or see?
I think both.
Okay.
You can see both.
Okay. See and feel.
Yeah,
correct?
absolutely.
Okay.
Because you're beginning to get a different type of resident in East Cleveland. You're getting a mixed group of people that are coming into the city. It's not just a 100% black city now. Now you have Caucasians and other ethnic groups beginning to move into the city.
Okay. At the point that when you moved in, what percentage of African Americans were?
I would imagine probably 90%.
90%.
I would imagine.
Okay. And also you mentioned too, and you say around the 90s you noticed a dip into the community, meaning was going downhill?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Does that mean that at one point it was a high peak for you?
High peak meaning?
Meaning that it was booming family, you had a lot of events to go to, the
There-
family structure was there.
There was still a lot going on, but that period of time when this community was decimated by drugs was it was very difficult to live in East Cleveland.
Okay. Was that drugs rampant, or that it came?
I would say absolutely. Brandon, wouldn't you say?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
much so.
Yeah, it was pretty fluid out here.
Was it rampant as in we can put our hands on it and say, okay, this is coming, we know the change, or rapid that it was a small dose of it and you just saw pockets?
No, it wasn't a small dose. This city was inundated. Period.
Okay.
Would you agree with that, Brandon?
Yes.
It was not good.
Okay.
Everything that you can think of was going on.
Okay. Relating to the drugs.
Right.
Okay. And so that was one of the points that you state that brought it down?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But prior to that, you don't think that had any influence on it?
It may have, but not as blatant and not as outward as it began in the 90s, early 90s, mid-90s.
Because that was my other leading question, the question, what do you think contributed to those changes? You said drugs and what other?
Well, I think purely economics. Economics,
Okay.
period.
Okay.
I mean, that was clearly the driving force behind all this. And then I think there was despair. And then, quite frankly, the city was led by corrupt officials. So there were a lot of factors. You know, I remember reading one time in one of the newspapers that said the last person out of Cleveland, East Cleveland, turned the lights out.
What does that mean?
That's how bad it was.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's how bad it was.
How bad is it?
People were trying to get out of here.
Okay. And also when you mentioned that people were seeking to leave, did you feel that they left because the drugs drove them out, or they felt like you felt it's time to move on?
I think it's a combination of both. Some people, their issue was safety.
Safety.
Number one was safety, that of themselves and their families. The second was the perception that nothing good was in East Cleveland. If you came to East Cleveland, you had to be here for the wrong reasons. And then I think just simple frustration. And again, and factored in with all those other things that I mentioned. So.
And like you mentioned too, it's not really one particular issue or concern we can put our finger on that state that drove East Cleveland to a spiral down. It could be a combination.
It was, yeah, it was a lot of factors.
A lot of factors. And those factors around the same time, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So it just happened to happen like that?
Yes.
Okay. My other question is, how has race and racism impacted you personally?
I'm not sure. I can answer that question probably 100 different ways.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think of the best way to answer it. When I was in Atlanta, prior to working for Mayor Young, I worked for Coretta Scott King. And I was her first national youth director at the Martin Luther King Center for Nonviolent Social Change. And one of the things that we did in that capacity beyond doing voter registration, we did a lot of protest work with Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And so we would go, give you a good example. I remember going into Selma, Alabama, with Dr. Lowry at that time, and we were doing voter registration. And I remember a group of white people saying to us, "You niggas better be out of here by sundown." And that was really my first blatant, if you will, brush with racism. I couldn't believe that people were still having those kinds of attitudes. In the mid-'80s, I took part in the protest march in Forsyth County, Georgia. And I think you all might remember those. That was one where Oprah Winfrey came and people from all over the country came. And the Klan was there. And I will never forget in my life walking to the courthouse and the Klan on both sides of us throwing stuff at us. And all you heard them say was nigger, 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 over and over again. And I just couldn't understand why, simply for the right to want to vote, that people would have those kinds of attitudes. And so through those experiences, racism hasn't per se affected me, but I know that it exists. I know that smiling faces are not always smiling faces. And so I am cognizant of that.
When you said it hasn't affected you with your list of line of prestige position, with you being a African American male, it hasn't stopped you in any way?
No, I could not blame racism on anything. That, maybe it's because I primarily all my adult life worked with our population of people.
Okay.
And I think that's a factor. Now, perhaps if I went into a different sorts of communities to work, it may have affected me differently. But most of all my professional life, I've worked with our population.
Okay. And that has helped you
Oh,
throughout
yeah.
the
Yeah.
ranking?
Absolutely.
Okay. And when you mentioned from the south to the north, the different people that you work with, they're similar across the board.
I would say so. Yeah,
Okay.
the people, all the same population of people. You know, always in. I've always served in a role of serving people, and generally to the same population of people.
Okay. And it seems that's what you like to do. That's your passion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's it.
That's your
it.
passion.
That's the passion.
Okay. The second part of the question, how has it impacted the city of East Cleveland? How has race/racism impacted the city of East Cleveland?
That's a very difficult question. I think we have the disadvantage with regards to race because this is not seen as a diverse community, be it ethnic or racial. And I think people looking on the outside just see it as a black city, as opposed to what it was in the 50s and the 60s when it was primarily a white, well-to-do suburb. So I think given the situation right now being predominantly black, I think there's a perception of, well, they can't do nothing because that's a black community. And I think that's one thing that hinders and hurts us.
That being said, when you say hurt us, is that something that we adopted or that's just something that's been inbred of us?
I think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
I think there are pockets in this community where people are just lost. They're like, well, I live here in East Cleveland, and that's just the way it's going to be the rest of my life. And then there are other pockets in the city where they see the strength of the city.
Okay. And also, I remember when I was a little bitty girl coming to East Cleveland, it was a stigma that you had to be your best going to East
Absolutely,
Cleveland.
that's true.
You didn't come in here any kind of way.
Right.
And just like you mentioned, some people, they thrive on that. They remember the yesteryears, there's a better word for. And some people just say, oh, this is the way it is.
Right, exactly.
So you saying that you find that as a combination?
It's a combination, but again, as I mentioned earlier, I think the city is on the move. And I think that perception and time will cease, and people will see the beauty of the city, the true beauty of the city.
When you mentioned on the move in what direction? On the move and
In positive ways, I think.
Positive ways.
Positive. I think I think I can't say it like this, but I think politics here will change eventually. Again, I think more development, more businesses will come into the community. I see a very strong partnership down the road with University Circle Inc., in the university, Case Western I'm referring to, and University Hospital, Cleveland Clinic. So I see in the future, not in the immediate, but I give it 2 to 5 more years that you will see a totally different East Cleveland than you see today.
Okay.
And I'm encouraged by that.
Okay. So when you mentioned that it's on the move, which is a good sign for you, and I can feel that you enjoy seeing it on the move. So it's on the rebound, if that's the right word.
That's a good
that I
word.
can say
Yeah.
for you. And you mentioned a lot of other areas that you can see it coming up. And you even gave it a timeline, which is great. You can see that timeline being met?
Absolutely, I can.
Okay. The next question is, how has the inequality impacted you personally?
Inequality, I would say it has not at this point. Again, given my background. Does that make sense?
If you can expand on it a little.
Okay, inequality. Now, why don't we explain that? Why don't you give that to me a little bit more?
So, meaning that the equal level of jobs, participation in East Cleveland, the home ownership, do you think it was an even balance? Do you feel that your position was an even balance.
Mhm.
You moving into your home was an even balance. Your child going to school, was that an even balance, or was that a struggle, or because of your race or racism has an effect on it?
No, I'd say no, racism has not, again, had an effect directly on me personally.
Okay.
When she talks about inequality, also, if I could further define that, inequality so far as the city of East Cleveland, your particular jobs, in that it's been argued that programs
Hmm.
in East Cleveland or in black communities will receive less funding.
That's correct. Okay,
or
I
less
got you now.
support. So when you talk about inequality as compared to a city like Cleveland Heights
Right.
or University Heights.
Okay, got it. Um, yeah, there is some inequality. Inequality in terms, particularly for funding for senior programs. Um, I go out to, I just was recently in Independence, Ohio, much smaller town than East Cleveland. But you should see their senior center and their youth center, which are combined. These are places that are absolutely beautiful. They sit on campuses. They have multiple buildings for multiple activities. In Independence, they not only have one swimming pool, but they have 3 swimming pools on the property. You go into the interior of these buildings. These places are laid out like mansions and provide a whole variety of services for their senior and youth population. So there is clearly a big difference. There's a big difference between here and Cleveland Heights in terms of what their senior center looks like and how they operate and who, in fact, engages in their services. So there's a big discrepancy, if you will, a mile from here, if you will.
And like we mentioned, for the inequality of the impact for the city, and that has to do with funding.
Everything is driven by funding. And it's hard. The pink elephant in the room, when I go to foundations for money, it ain't about the services that we want to provide because, they know we can do it. The pink elephant in the room is how stable is your city government? People do not invest in governments that are unstable. You can have the brightest idea in the world, but if your city government is unstable, I was going to say vendors, but investors tend to stay away. And I'm not talking about just business investment. I'm talking about human investment. They stay away.
When you mention unstable in the government, you're talking about our political leaders.
I'm talking about our political leaders, yes.
Political leaders meaning how aggressive they are.
No, I'm referring to the history. We've got, 2 mayors in jail.
Okay.
We've had multiple people under indictment for various kinds of things. You have a sluggish economy as it already is. You have a high rate of unemployment in this city. And like I previously stated, the perception that there's a lot of crime that goes here. Nobody wants to invest in those kinds of things. So that has been my biggest challenge, is getting people to buy into the idea of helping us and funding us for the services that we know we can do. But again, the first thing they're looking at is what's going on in East Cleveland. And that's the pink elephant in the room.
That cliche, pink elephant, means?
That means you can't help but see the elephant in the room.
Okay. So how the government is being ran, either in the past, which that's the only track record people have to go by.
Exactly.
So of course, they would like to see a more stable government.
Absolutely, yes.
Then they know where they're not even money going to. They know it's a good potential. Then it may or may not happen.
That's right.
Especially nowadays with
right.
the economy And people want to know that they're investing in the value. When you go to the bank, you want it to be valuable.
Right.
You want an increase and a decrease.
Right.
Is that,
That's
is that,
ex-
is that
that's
correct?
exact. That is exactly right.
Okay.
And if we could stop, Brandon, would you agree with that?
You're absolutely right, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I recall going to the Cleveland Foundation for something, and they don't want to talk about what we wanted to talk about. They want to talk about what's going on with the government. What's going on with City Council? How come they can't get it together? And you'd be surprised how many meetings I go to, and that's what people want to know.
And they're asking you, of course, because you're going to them for funding,
Mhm.
and they want to know, okay,
Is my money going to be appropriated correctly?
okay,
Are you going to be able to do what you say you're going to be able to do?
okay,
Are you going to be there? Are you going to be able to sustain this? That's what people want to know, and that goes with human services, and that goes with business development.
is that a
Would you agree?
shock to you?
It's not a shock given the history of the city, if I might speak very frankly. You know, no, it's not a shock. It's always a challenge for me. I mean, I find myself having to really sell the city, having to, potential investors, if you will, letting them know that things are stable or they're stabilizing. And that's probably 90% of the job that any of us as directors are forced to do in our various departments, is to try and sell the city, and that to let people know that things are changing and that we're part of that new change. But I would be, it would be dishonest to say otherwise.
So in your position and role, it seems like you're doing several hats that you're wearing, and it's always good to have partnerships, because you're
Mhm.
not gonna survive just on
Not
this
by
team.
yourself.
We
Mm-mm.
definitely have to reach out to
Mhm.
other communities and ask for their support.
Absolutely we do.
And so if I'm understanding you correctly, and maybe you can clear up some areas that I had, that you in the position or in the hot seat, not just to come to the table and say, we on a rebound,
Mm-hmm.
we need your help,
Mm-hmm.
but to give them at a comfort level, to let them know that it's gonna be okay, we're gonna do what we say we're gonna do, we have a program and a plan
Mm-hmm.
to ease their mind. Because-
Absolutely. One of our primary funders, when I came in, they used to fund certain areas of the center, and then they pulled their funding. And I went to them and I said, this is my promise to you. I'm going to report into you every quarter, let you know what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And then on top of that, we're going to develop a strategic plan. And our strategic plan was just completed. In fact, if you hold for a minute, you'll edit, I'll give you we just got it and finished it in May. It took us over a year to do it. But this is, so
Great.
that because I needed that tool,
You need to be cool.
I needed that tool so that I, for sure, could tell potential funders of where we were heading. You have to have a roadmap.
Okay. And also, do we need are you with a team that's going out for East Cleveland? Are you with a team that's going out to promote East Cleveland
It's
as a whole?
It's been primarily in my area, just my staff,
Okay.
but through the East Cleveland Bridge of Hope Coalition,
Okay.
which I am now the chairperson of, we are bringing in all the partners who have any kind of interest in East Cleveland. Right now, the East Cleveland Bridge of Hope Coalition represents over 40 agencies from inside and outside of East Cleveland. And our mission is to promote the well-being of the city of East Cleveland.
When you mentioned 40, was 40 the primary number?
40 organizations
Organization.
that are represented from every major sector.
Okay. Is that just the ideal number, or that's just what
That's
it
just
is?
the way it grew.
Okay. Would you like to see more?
I think we've got pretty much. I mean, even though there are 40 organizations, we probably have 150 to 200 members that are in the coalition.
Okay. And how long has this Bridging Hope?
Bridges of Hope, 4 years.
4 years. Okay.
It was a program that I had the pleasure of starting up 4 years ago. Again, with NORA, Northern Ohio Recovery Association, and the emphasis is on building a drug-free community. So I've left now because I came here, and now I am the chair of that coalition.
And with this particular coalition, what is the mission and the goals in the 5 or 10 years?
The immediate goal is to build a drug-free community by making environmental changes. And when I say environmental change, that means public policy.
Okay. Okay. Is there a particular area in East Cleveland that we are starting to focus in first as a pilot and move out?
Yep, the west end of East Cleveland, and that's where the Lakeview area, where all the development is coming down Euclid Avenue.
Okay. Okay. And why that particular area?
I think that's the area of the city that needed the most immediate attention.
Is it more
And that's through part of that is from some of the stimulus money, and it's referred to as NSP 1. There are 3 phases of NSP, and we're in phase 1 of it right now.
Okay. So it's ongoing. This is something that
Yes, this is federal dollars.
federal dollars.
Yes.
So that means that we had other outside influencing us to move forward in that area.
Exactly.
Okay. Is that considered a redlining area?
You know, there's a psychology, I think, to it, because everybody thinks of the bridge, and that under the bridge, when you go on one side is Cleveland, you go on the other side is East Cleveland, and for years there has been that psychological wall that, you know, students are saying, no, don't go under the bridge, because now you're in East Cleveland, and you know about East Cleveland and what the perception is. So there's a psychology there attached to that. But I think eventually, over time, that wall, if you will, that bridge, you know, will be brought down.
When you say the bridge, is that where the health line is?
Yeah.
Where they're building the new apartments?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Is that the only bridge?
No. Well, 1, 2, 3 in East Cleveland, but they don't have the same stigma as that one. And I think because that's on a main corridor.
With you being here such a short period of time, and of course, I guess in your position, in your leadership position, you learned so much.
Mm-hmm.
Can I recap and say what any of your family members taught you a lot, put you under your wings and told you about East Cleveland, or during your period of time you learned so
I
much?
just learned.
Okay.
You know, this was a on-the-ground learning experience.
Okay. Leading up to the other question, it says, can you recollect a moment or instant when the community fought for something in East Cleveland?
I don't personally. I know there have been protests about wanting to reclaim the neighborhoods. There have been many, many, many efforts around that. I referred earlier to the community activist Art McCoy, who had his Black Crime Committee, and they were fairly visible in this city, trying to get people to, you know, stop the violence. So I think there have been many efforts underway in this city over the years. Now the question always becomes, are they sustainable? Have they been sustainable efforts? And can't say yea or nay on either of those.
Okay. When you said the efforts that was put out that you just mentioned, so do you think those efforts moving us forward or backward?
No, they've moved us forward, and there are remnants of it, you know, of people wanting a community to change. The faith community is very strong in trying to get people to change, people, you know, their attitudes. Again, I mentioned the coalition, you know, we're doing our job to get people to change. So, you know, the efforts are there, just they took on there's a different way of how people are doing it these days.
When you say the coalition, is the coalition open up for any
Yes.
community resident?
Any resident in the city of East Cleveland, anybody.
And you're the chairperson,
Yes,
correct? With you being the chairperson, how are you marketing it to the everyday walk of life of people?
We have monthly meetings.
Okay.
That's first of all. We have our literature in probably every major venue in the city. Recently, and I mean very recently, we just have our web page, which is about to go up. In fact, we're just editing it now, and we hope to have the web page up by August.
Okay.
And I'll show you guys before you leave.
Please.
Pretty nice.
Also, when you mentioned to the everyday walk of life, I would say the grassroots people, concerning your organization, would you like to have more to participate?
Absolutely.
How is your volunteer bank of people?
It is very good. However, that's primarily through our professional associations. Like, for example, we have a teen summit that's coming up in September. We ask residents and families to volunteer. A lot of the base of our volunteers comes from, let's say, for example, Cleveland Clinic, where their employees will come out and work with us on that day. So it's a variety of Case Western is good partner as well. So we have a solid base, but we would love more resident involvement.
I know that.
And that's difficult too. Sometimes that's a hard sell.
I know that Brandon King and his family have a business in East Cleveland. And do you reach out to the local businesses to be a part of it? I know they're doing some wonderful things.
Yes.
With the solar building. Do you reach out to their families?
We reach out to our local businesses, but again, it's a hard sell for certain businesses because understand with the coalition, our emphasis is on substance abuse. And some owners tend to run from that because they don't really understand what it is we're trying to do. So we reach out to businesses, but sometimes they can be a hard sell.
Okay, well, if business is a hard sell as individuals, you would like.
Let me give you an example of why the work that we do can be very difficult for others to involve. We have a problem here in the city with underage drinking and in stores selling to minors, both tobacco and alcohol. And if you go down Euclid Avenue, you'll see what do we got? We got more liquor stores, more gas stations and corner stores that are selling alcohol and drugs, alcohol and to underage young people. And they know that we know that they sell it. So they aren't willing to join our coalition, I assure you of that, as much as we have reached out to them.
I just want to add a piece. I lived in Atlanta for 25 years, and
Did you?
I believe in family.
Okay.
And all through my 25 years, and I raised my son there, the three things that I felt strongly about, and the city felt strongly about, is their senior citizens, their youth, and their homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what event they had, they always had a place for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
When the average everyday person need to know, because you're doing a wonderful job.
Mm-hmm.
And like you mentioned, you're reaching out to the businesses, and like you said, you always open to people to come to your event.
Mhm.
And you do have a website. Do you have that website address?
I can't give it to you right now, but
Okay.
I'm going to pull it because I don't remember. They're still playing with it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And with that, do you think that's a big chunk or piece to help move East Cleveland for other people to partner, or just for need to know information?
No, I think definitely the larger picture that you just mentioned.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay. So going on to the next question, how have the surrounding institutions and city impacted East Cleveland?
Well, I think that we all know that the biggest institution that impacted East Cleveland was Cleveland Clinic,
Okay,
and the passage, if we will, of Huron Road Hospital, and people not having a trauma center. I think the verdict is still out on whether that was a good decision or not. I mean, in its place, we did get the Stephanie Tubbs Jones Health Center, and that's a good thing. But I think if you were to talk about any institution that's impacted this city as much, it is definitely Cleveland Clinic.
okay, okay. So Cleveland Clinic have impacted the city a lot, correct?
Yes. Hmm.
So I wanted to know, when you said it impacted the city a lot and it took the place of Huron Road Hospital, or has it been a great impact for bigger and better things?
Again, I think the verdict is still out on that. Um, there's still no trauma center in our area.
Okay,
A lot of jobs left when the clinic tore down the hospital. Um, there's a psychological impact on the community of who can use the services that are available in the city
okay,
and who can't. Um, Psychological, because people definitely don't know whether to trust the institution or not.
okay.
So I would say of any institution, Cleveland Clinic has had the most impact. So the verdict is still out. If it was a good plan or whether it was a bad plan.
So this plan with Huron Road being transitioning to something as the Stephanie Chubb Jones Center,
Mhm.
it hasn't by no means replaced Huron Road
Oh,
Hospital.
absolutely not.
It has not replaced
No,
it.
has not.
It has not replaced the people who lost their jobs.
Right, has not.
It has not replaced the attitudes of the people. Now they still have negative impact. Is
Mhm.
that correct?
That's correct.
With the East Cleveland Clinic, quote unquote, is here now. You being the chairperson of the coalition, what would you like to have happen?
What in the perfect world, it would have been to build a new hospital that has the capacity to treat trauma victims. And the beauty of Huron as being the trauma center was that it's regional. It just wasn't centered on East Cleveland. So if something happened to someone, they had a fall in Cleveland Heights, they're able to get here and not go all the way across town to Metro. If somebody's over in Collinwood gets hurt, the same thing applies. So, that's in the ideal world. That's what I would have liked to have seen happen.
And with that being said, this was ongoing years to prepare for this closing in Huron Road Hospital. How many years you would guesstimate?
I would guesstimate probably a couple years, although it was probably on somebody's radar 5 years before that.
Okay.
That's what I would suspect.
And do you know what is going to be in place of the hospital?
The health center. There's not going to be all that area is torn down now, and I imagine there'll be green space until the mayor or other officials decide on what they want to do with that land.
But to your knowledge, at this point, we don't have any plans on the book to utilize that space.
Not that I am aware of.
And to your knowledge, at this point, with Cleveland Clinic, their part is done, oversaid and done.
They're dead. Yep.
Okay. Do you know what happened with the impact of East Cleveland for Cleveland Clinic Hospital being up and running, what happened to the workers that was at Huron Road Hospital? Were they
The,
placed other
the
places?
majority, as I understand it, were placed within their health care system at other hospitals or clinics.
So they've been replaced at other East
Right.
Cleveland facilities?
No, other Cleveland Clinic hospitals.
Oh, okay, the Cleveland Clinic Hospitals, okay. Any other institution that you think it had a big impact on East Cleveland that's up and coming?
Mm, I would say definitely the McGregor Home as an institution.
Okay.
It provides a place for seniors to go once they need that level of care. So I would say they've had a great impact on the city as well. Yeah.
With that McGregor home, is that permanent or temporary living?
It can be temporary, but the majority of that is a permanent housing.
Okay.
Assisted living.
Assisted living.
Right.
And my other question, with this being, and we interviewing here at the Helen S. Brown Center, you have a senior citizen building adjacent from here,
Yes,
is that correct? Is that whole, how many suites in that building?
I believe it is 56.
56.
Mhm.
And most of your seniors come from that building to here?
No, our seniors come from all over.
How many senior citizen buildings do we have in East Cleveland?
Oh my gosh. Whew. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. At least 10.
At least 10, an equal level of suites?
No, bigger. If you go down, all you got to do is go down terrace.
Terrace?
And all you got to do is go down terrace, and you can count the buildings, and then you got the Owl's Nest up on Noble Road. Then you got CMHA's property on Superior. Yeah, there's about 10 of them.
At least 10. So
At
we
least-
have our share.
We have more than our share.
Okay.
And in fact, the new one is being built right there across the street from the healthcare center. That's a senior development as well. Across from Windermere,
Yeah.
Windermere Church.
Is that going to be a big high rise?
That is going to be a high rise, but I believe there's only three levels, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Here's the plans.
Since we have,
They're going to be very, very nice.
since we have a lot of senior citizen building here, and this new high-rise building, what brought this on to the plans to make East Cleveland what?
Well, these units are designed for moderate income people.
Okay.
And it just brings really nice flavor by way of the design to that whole area. This was purposeful because it falls in line with the plans that are on the ground right now for the development of that entire area.
Was this plan, to your knowledge, in existence before the Cleveland Clinic, Stephanie Chubb?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay. So you think this would be a good flavor and a good extra added?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. And also when you mentioned the McGregor home for seniors, is that a new building, new establishment?
Oh, no, they've been in existence for years and years and years and years. The McGregor family was one of the more prominent families in East Cleveland, along with the Rockefeller families. So they're very, very prominent in the city and have been here for decades.
So they're equally
Who's that?
involved with the McGregor family and the Rockefeller family?
Yeah.
Okay. And with the Rockefeller family, their establishment, of course, is the park, and what other establishment has brought a lot to East
All
Cleveland?
of, if you go up in the Forest Hill area, you will see absolutely all these beautiful homes that the Rockefeller family have built and they're occupied today. A great majority of them are on the Register of Historical Places. One of the most beautiful areas of East Cleveland, and the funny thing is that some people don't even realize that it's East Cleveland. They have no, not only the park, but that adjacent community where all these mansions are at. People are a lot of people are under the impression that that is Cleveland Heights.
Okay,
Wouldn't you agree with that? Yeah.
okay.
But that's why I say about East Cleveland, it's diverse in so much as you have extreme poverty in certain areas, and then you have extreme wealth in other areas of the city.
Has it always been that pocket there?
Since the 1900s.
Since 1900?
Yeah.
Leading on to my next question is, what is your vision for a future of East Cleveland?
That's a good question. My vision is a community where people feel safe, where people can raise their children, where children can get a quality education, a community that has jobs available, a community in the ideal world that would be drug-free, but that if people had issues, that the services are right here in the community for them. A place where our seniors can grow old with dignity. That's the kind of ideal moving forward that I'd like to see. And those are things that I work for to this day. I'm an idealist person.
Okay.
And in my job, I strive to do that every single day. And, you know, again, it's reflected in our strategic plan here.
And part two to that question is, tell me about the major issues that need addressed in order to better our community, our neighborhood, and our city.
The most immediate thing, and I know this is going to be redundant, and you're probably going to hear it in all your interviews, but jobs, period. People need work. People need work not only to sustain themselves and their families, but for their own personal dignity. So jobs would be number one, and I think that's the basis of a strong community. And then I think the second thing that I talked about earlier is that we need a stable government, a government where people know exactly what's going to happen. Somewhat predictable, but stable. You know, and sometimes it's like pulling the head out the hat, rabbit out the hat. You don't know what's coming out of there, you know.
And that's not good.
And that's absolutely not good.
And my last question, and then some other questions are, what would you be prepared to do to participate in making East Cleveland better?
I think I'm doing it right now. I think I'm pretty immersed in this city. Would you say that's a fair statement? I mean, I'm involved in everything and anything. In this, I belong to so many organizations, sit on boards. I've got my hands in some of everything in city government. You know, just because you see me here at the center, please don't think that this is the only thing that I do, you know, because I work with young people. I mean, I have my hands in everything. So I think I'm doing the work now. Being involved with youth athletics, I mean, you name it, I'm involved. Being involved with the faith community, I'm involved. You know, whatever it takes, I'm involved in this city, and I think I'm making my contribution.
I agree with that. And you're on the steering committee for the social justice system.
Yes, that's true. That's right.
I just have a couple of closing questions,
Mhm.
and I'm going to have a lead-in to.
You seem stunned there for a minute. You kind of like, when I rattled off all this stuff, you kind of just looked at me like, but
Oh, no, I was getting ready to ask my question.
Yeah.
I wanted to say to you is, what brings you pleasure, what brings you the passion to be able to do as much as you do?
well, I've always been a passionate person, but you know what really drives me? the God's honest truth, what really drives me is I think we can do better. And if I can do anything to make that possible, if that's my contribution, I'm going to try and do it. And I strongly believe that God gives all of us assignments. You know, some people refer to their job as a job or their career as a career, but I refer to it as an assignment. I think God purposely places us where we are best utilized, where we can best use our gifts to help others. And I think God has done that. So this is my assignment right now.
You had mentioned two parts. You mentioned that you feel that you're doing what you could be doing and at the best that you can do. Then you stated that you feel that you maybe want to do more.
Well, I don't think it's humanly possible to do more, but if I were called on to do more, I would do more. Just that's it in a nutshell. But I think I'm doing my part, and I think part of my assignment is to try and inspire others to get involved.
And it's clearly that you're doing your best.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And are you mentoring any people at this time? You, anyone?
There are a couple of people who tend to follow me and ask me for advice, and I would say in a way it's a mentoring relationship.
Okay. I just have two closing questions, and I'm going to lead it in to my colleague. My closing questions to you are, with you doing so much, and like to me is more to you than what people see.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how I felt that I definitely wanted to have you to be a part of the East Cleveland documentary.
Okay.
And you were so willing to be a part. And
Yeah.
of course, you were on the steering committee, so you knew
Right.
who was the lead in it.
Right.
But I just wanted to have an honor to interview you.
Right.
And I thank you for that honor.
No problem. Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of things that I learned today. And I feel that you have done and contribute since you've been here so much.
Mm-hmm.
So my closing question is, who would be a mentor for you that was in East Cleveland now, was a mentor for you that you looked up to when you first came in 1988?
I would say probably two people. One is Charles C. Charles C. is the director over at Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry. He actually runs the community reentry program. So Charles C. would be one. And I think, I'm trying to think right now. That's about it for now. Yeah, that would be the one person.
Okay. Brandon King, did you have any closing question for?
Oh, I'm sorry. And the other person, I would be remiss if I left her name out. Ruth Addison.
Ruth Addison.
Yeah, she was long-term director of Murders Taylor Center.
Okay. I'm going to take and have Brandon King to ask any closing questions.
I just have one question, Director Valentine, and you pretty much answered it throughout the entire interview, but I want to ask you this question and then have you just talk about it succinctly. Because you've been in social services basically your entire life.
Right.
You've been here since '88 in East Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that you were able to either directly watch or indirectly watch services in East Cleveland, and like swimming pools and
Right.
family picnics when you got here, even though you weren't working here.
Right.
And then when you took the job here. So if you could talk about how social services have changed over the years in East Cleveland, at the Helen S. Brown, and then your future for social services here in East Cleveland and at the center.
Well, very good question. There was a height. Remember I talked about that transition, the 3 periods? There was a time in East Cleveland when there was an abundance of social services available. Then things got bad, and then they sort of disappeared. and now they're back on the mend. And we're doing that, I think, through again, through the East Cleveland Bridge of Hope Coalition, getting partners to come back into the city to provide services. And, you know, my vision in the future for that would be that you don't have to go outside of this 3.5 miles to get something that you need. It should all be available here in East Cleveland. You know, I'd love to have a one-stop shopping center for social services here in East Cleveland, because unfortunately, a lot of our people, for certain things, they got to go all the way downtown, and they don't drive, so they got to either get somebody to take them, or they got to get on the bus, and you know, there's a cost associated with that. So in the ideal world, I would love to have a one-stop center for social services here in East Cleveland.
That would be something that you would like to, we have it, but not at the level that you want.
Not at the level, no.
Or what it could and should be.
What it could and should be, exactly.
We're going to take an opportunity.
And then I want to digress for a minute. One other thing I'd like to see in the city, a quality grocery store. Okay. We do not have, I mean, they call East Cleveland a food desert, you know. Food desert meaning that you have to travel in order to get quality produce and food. And so I would love for our people to have a quality grocery store.
We're going to take a minute to pan some of your pictures and just
Okay.
show. Before we get to that particular point, can you set it up or what we expected to see?
This was a voicing project done by Case Western Reserve University. And what they've asked our seniors to do was take pictures of something that impacted them personally. And so they gave them cameras, and they had an opportunity to either, you know, do their family, go out in the woods, something that personally impacted them. And these are the pictures that the seniors put together.
What year was this?
This was just
You spoke a lot about different other programs that are available in East Cleveland to keep the memory and keep the hope alive. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So this is probably one of the.
Absolutely.
But it's a need for it. Is that correct?
That's
so we
correct.
can pass it along to the next generation.
Right.
And that's
Like,
why
I'll give you an
they're
example.
excited.
Like with Miss Smith, you can kind of tell already what drives her, and it's her faith.
It's her faith.
Okay.
It's her face. And this particular one right here, this gentleman, it's by Miss Item. It's her family that's important to her. And the same way with this one, I like this one. That's really creative there. You see where they got the family in the tree? See?
Oh, that's nice. Okay, yeah, I didn't see it back there.
Yeah.
And these were
That's
students?
No, these are seniors.
Seniors.
These are all seniors.
But this came through Case Western Reserve, you said?
Uh-huh.
Nice.
Yeah, they got a lot of direction. These are only a few of them.
Just a few.
These are just a few.
Is that probably?
And this has been actually, it's been, the whole thing has been traveling all over the city. The whole display.
And is that project closed or they still open for?
They are, I believe, over now because they've been. These are a few that we have, but again, they've been on display all over the city, the greater Cleveland area.
Okay.
And these, you see how nice they're going to be?
Yes, as Mr. Brandon King just panned the different pictures that we have here.
Yeah. I was trying to get.
See, these are part of these senior centers
Senior center
on Terrace.
on Terrace. These are a few that's up and running now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's just gonna take a few of those pictures. And what is this picture right behind you?
That is the senior center in Cleveland Heights.
In Cleveland Heights?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
But we do try and do things, you know, with our other suburbs.
Okay.
But can you see immediately the difference aesthetically?
Okay.
Take a look at what they got, and I'm gonna. Have you been there before?
Just at the front part,
I'll
the
walk
back
you
part,
around real
please, please, please.
So you talk about inequity, but this is nothing again compared to what the center looks like in Independence.
And again, where's this center at here?
That's Cleveland Heights.
Oh, that's the big one up on Mayfield.
Right.
And, yeah, it's a beautiful center. Mayfield and Superior.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this was a picture from, who had the honor of?
We have an art class,
Okay.
and a drawing class,
Drawing
and
class.
one of my singers draw.
It's a pretty
I'm
good picture.
gonna show you. I'm gonna show you some more that they did when we walked.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm ready.
We want to thank you so very much.
Yes,
As
ma'am.
always, it's been a pleasing pleasure, well as a
Thank you.
privilege.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you. Want to close out this session. And if anything else that you had to say in closing.
I'm fine. I just want you to get a feel, because again, you gotta have a roadmap,
Okay.
and this is our roadmap. When I got here, there was no roadmap. People were just shooting in the dark, and you can't do that. You can't.
We're going to show. I'm
You-
just going
you
to take
can-
the opportunity to just go through it just briefly, if you didn't get a good, clear shot of the.
Okay.
If you don't have a map, how do you know where to go? And unfortunately, this city, I believe, in my personal opinion, has been operating without a roadmap for a long time.
Nice. And you got the McGregor Foundation to fund that.
Yes, I
Excellent.
did.
Excellent.
And now we're getting ready to go into the implementation.